If tomorrow all the things were gone, I'd work for all my life, and I had to start again with just my children and my wife. I thank my lucky stars to be living here today, 'cause the flag still stands for freedom, and they can't take that away. And I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free, and I won't forget.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Central Valley Talk, and welcome to Ray John's American Patriot. Each week we do a different American Patriot, but before I get into that today, I'd like to talk about something, and that's the statues of Robert E. Lee and Stonewall Jackson coming down. I think it's wrong. I don't think it should happen. They are part of American history. How far do we go with this? I mean, Jefferson owned slaves. There were black people that owned slaves. I mean, how far do we go with this? It's getting to be a little bit ridiculous in my part. Stonewall Jackson and Robert E. Lee are a great part of history. You cannot erase history, I mean, do they think, what's the purpose of doing this? Is it like saying that it didn't happen? Well, it did happen. This week I have that being said, I have a Confederate patriot this week, and it's a woman. And her name is Rose O'Neal Griswold. She was married to a very prominent, very wealthy doctor, extremely wealthy. She was a very wealthy woman. And when the war broke out between the states, she volunteered through Jefferson Davis because she knew him. She traveled in those circles, and she became a spy. And she was instrumental. In fact, Jefferson Davis credited her with the victory at Bull Run, because she would get herself invited to these elaborate parties held by these generals, Grant and all these people, and she would get in with these people and find out all this great information and bring it back to the Confederacy. And she was very, very vital. She later on in life because of her what she'd done, became a diplomat to Europe prior to the ending of the Civil War. So anyway, that's our American Patriot for this week. A woman who was instrumental in helping the South, the Confederacy. And another great patriot I have sitting right here with me is Gary Miguel. How you doing, buddy?
How you doing, Ray?
And we're going to talk about a lot of things today. One thing I'd like to talk about is Kim Jong-un. And Gary and I talked a little bit about it. The man it's just amazing. I mean, he's finally waking up and realizing that he doesn't have a choice, and his threats don't mean anything. Obviously don't. What do you think, Gary?
Yeah, and I'm glad you bring that Patriot before every show starts.
Oh, thank you, buddy.
Yeah, I think that's a neat little touch, because there's things that people are
I've
hear
heard
about
things.
Never would.
I didn't know that.
And they're interesting, and they're part of our culture.
Yes, they are. Yes, they are. And I wanted to, because I'm so against bringing down the statues, I not only wanted to have a Confederate patriot, because we've got a lot of them.
Right.
I wanted to have a woman, so I did some research.
Oh, that's perfect. That was very, very good. Yeah. That monument thing, it's not an accident or somebody's idea. That goes clear back to the communists. If you study communism and study the manifestos and those sort of things, that is one of the things that is used by a group of people, or a communist party, if you will. That's one of the things that they use as part of overcoming and overthrowing a way of life, or a government, or a society, is by destroying their monuments.
Yeah.
And there's never been a communist country that's ever become a communist country that didn't at one time destroy the monuments.
Oh, absolutely. You can go back in history. I can remember reading about it.
And so what we're having right now, you'd never think things like that would happen in America, but that's going on right now. Monuments that's been there for hundreds of years are being destroyed.
Well, it really upsets me. I mean, it's a part of history, and it's almost like they're saying this is you call them useful idiots, I call them useless idiots, same thing. And it's almost like, we're going to take this down, so that means what? It didn't happen?
Well, let's just go on further and look at some of the monuments, in a sense, by name and by structure.
Okay.
But let's just use an example who had a profound change in a lot of thinking and so forth. Let's take Martin Luther King.
Okay.
Okay. Now let's run the clock forward a couple of 100 years or so and have somebody sit there and say we got to take down Martin Luther King's monument. Now, whether you subscribe with what Martin Luther King did or didn't, the point is he was part of history, and he had a big enough impact and influence, just as Robert E. Lee did or any of these people at the time.
Absolutely.
And those people deserve. That was a different era. That's not us. That's a different era.
It is a different era.
It just honoring or reminding or just making us realize.
Yeah.
Well, who was this guy? This monument. You got Robert E. Lee. You got Grant.
Yeah.
I mean, come on. We go on and on like
Yeah.
that. You go clear back to the Revolutionary War, and there's statues of people and monuments of such. You got roads named after people and so forth.
Absolutely. Schools, universities, everything.
Exactly. I look at Chief Joseph and the Nez Perce Indians up there in Washington.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a guy that, if anybody, that poor guy, it was awful way he was treated. But you can't hardly go too far in any town or street and not see a Chief Joseph Dam, a Chief Joseph School, a Chief Joseph Highway.
Which is the way it should. Which is the way it should be.
And it just. Yeah, that's the way it should be, and it's honoring or reminding or something of somebody that was. And Chief Joseph was one of the most shrewdest ever.
Yeah.
Why now would I want to sit there and I'm supposed to now take Chief Joseph completely out of my mind and everybody else's mind, and he doesn't exist?
That's what's so ridiculous about it.
That's
what's so ridiculous about it.
And we're cheating our own people and our own culture by doing those kind of things.
Absolutely. We're denying history is what we're doing.
And we're denying a culture, good or bad, or however way you feel.
Yeah.
But the point is there, let's...
I mean, it's obvious. I'm African American, I mean, I'm totally against what happened in the Civil War. But I realized it happened. I realized that General Lee, General Stonewall Jackson were great Americans. And they were. I mean, you can yell and scream all you want. They were great Americans.
Well, you got to
believed in it, who had a cause, they believed in it, and they followed through on it.
Well, and you have to put things in perspective of the culture of that moment.
Absolutely.
Which may have nothing to do with the culture of this moment.
Yeah. It doesn't.
Or any moment. Did that particular Civil War era have anything to do with the times of the Mayflower come over here?
Yeah.
Not at all, And it's just all a progression of different eras, of different generations, living at different times that same generation may be 180 degrees off if they were living today in terms of what they were then or how they thought. Mm-hmm. And that's another thing that be careful of the mind and thought control that's going on with the liberals right now in power. And their interest is to control what you think about.
Sure, they started that with the media,
and
for one thing.
Political correctness is nothing more than a mind control to what we think about something.
Beautifully said, Gary. Beautifully said.
I'll use an example. I got thinking about this the other day. I remember not too long ago, not too long ago, driving by a high school and looking in the car lot, and I'd see pickups there with gun racks.
Oh, yeah.
Never gave it a thought.
Yeah.
How come now that when I go by there and I see if I were to see a pickup with gun racks, I'd give it a thought? It's because somebody's controlled my thought.
Exactly.
I remember, and you do too, you remember going to high school, which is a big deal here, is to kill varmints, gophers and rabbits and all that. We'd go to high school to get our bullets.
There you go.
And nobody gave it a thought. Can you imagine with today's...
You better not show up on a campus
13-year-old. Let's say you're a 13-year-old, and you say, well, I'm going down to high school and get a couple of boxes of 22 shells. They'd turn you in, and you'd be... You'd be hanging that night.
Yeah.
You see how they control the thoughts of people to where...
Beautifully said. And that's very true.
At one time, you'd sit there and say, man, I can't wait to get to high school this morning. I'm going to go by the ag department and pick up a couple of boxes of 22 shells. Because I got some foxtails to turn in and some...
Hey, I can remember. Here's a good example, because especially if you grew up in a farming community, I can remember show and tell in like the 7th grade. You're 12 years old, and I can remember this kid. His name was Brian, and he brought his brand new 22 for show and tell. He just bought it. He was real proud of it.
Oh,
he
sure.
showed it.
Yeah.
He right in front of the class had it pointed up, and he showed it how to load it and everything, and how to unload it and stuff. Nobody thought anything about that.
No, not at all. In fact, kids would do that. They'd come to school and they'd bring and show their guns, like you just described. But now let's think about this. Okay, you got a 13 or 14-year-old kid that says, I'm going to go to school to get some bullets. They're going to throw him in jail.
Oh, yeah.
Now,
and what's going to happen if you and I are driving? If I'm driving down the street and I see some 13-year-old kid walking down the street, I'm going to confront him. I may get shot, but I'm going to confront him, try to do what I can to keep him from going into that school.
Of course.
And of course, get on the phone to the proper authorities. And it's because it's the way I've been programmed, just like you said.
And it's an intentional programming. It's not... that just makes more sense or anything. No, that's all intentional.
Mm-hmm.
And
of course it is.
I'll tell you another intentional thing, and I wanted to bring it up, is I use the term libtard.
Mm-hmm.
Don't think a thing about it. But guess what? I was with my daughter and son-in-law, and they were just aghast about that term libtard. And the reason being that my son-in-law has a member in their family that's retarded and felt that was being disrespectful or insulting to that retarded person who can't help himself.
Yeah.
Now, I never gave that a thought.
No.
Not at all.
No.
It was not even thought. I mean,
it wasn't intended in that way at all. And I knew that when first time I heard you said it. I thought it was great.
Well, it is. I got to thinking about it, and I told them, I said, no, you guys are politically correct, and you've been brainwashed into this. You're getting upset over things that people don't even think about. But you're getting upset over it because you're being politically correct, and that is part of the brainwashing. So I thought about that night. And I woke up the next morning and was sitting there at breakfast. I said, listen, I'm going to take your advice. I'm not going to use the word libtard on that show again. And I said, because, going along with your deal, what makes me think that all retarded people are liberals? So it's an insult to a retarded person who's not a liberal for me to be calling him a liberal, a libtard. So I'm not going to use that anymore. And I'm going to change it to libcom, com meaning communist. Mm-hmm. And they plotted that.
I think that's great.
But you see how something like that is without giving any thought because of
they were just two people. You know, there's other people.
Oh,
to see.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you think about some of the things that we do today that was accepted back then, and we could go to a lot of extremes. You know, going in that we see today that, oh my Lord, we just die of a heart attack.
Yeah.
Some kid said, well, all he'd have to do is say, I'm going down to high school and get some bullets. Well, they're going to throw him in jail. At one time, I'll go with you. Let's take it back.
Exactly.
You see, and that's because we think different.
Sure.
Well, why do we think different? Because we're being programmed.
Absolutely.
And it's a propaganda and an indoctrination that's going on, and it's not because of accident. And it's not necessarily even because of politeness. But it's politically correct.
I'll tell you something else I think, and I just thought of that just now too. And I think it blows this stuff open in these kids' mind because of the way the media handle it. So you got some kid he's half off his rocker anyway. He's not popular. People pick on him. So what does he do? He gets a gun and goes and shoots people. Well, because he's read about other people that have done that. You know?
How else is the political agenda to be assimilated among all the people? What a better source than the 95% liberal media. 95%.
That is high.
Okay, that liberal media is a communist-style propaganda machine, no different than Pravda in Russia.
I say this all the time. Just look who owns it.
Yeah, look who owns it.
You know.
Yeah, and so it's amazing to me the amount of people that have, quite frankly, overcome that. I mean, there's more.
We've talked about that before too. Yeah,
more and more people are saying, "Hey,
they're waking up." It's like you said one time. They're waking up. They're starting to realize, wait a minute. You know?
I'm being fed something that it just doesn't make common sense. And at least from what I'm looking at, let's say, I'm talking about any individual, and then after a while, they start to realize, says, well, I'm going to talk about a friend of mine. Just saw this afternoon, hadn't seen him over a year, and he was a Clintonite.
I like that term.
And so anyway, and of course, gets home at night, a hard-working guy, gets home at night, pops the TV on for a half hour, pops a beer, and watch CNN. But he began to, over this period of time, now I hadn't seen this guy in over a year, but over this period of time, he started seeing what was happening. And today, I asked him, I said, what do you think about the way we're going? He says, I'm all behind this America Great Again. And he says, the difference, I began to realize that Trump is interested in Americans first. And he's demonstrating it over and over. So I said, well, then are you telling me that you would support? He said, I support the Trump's agenda, and I support Trump now. Well, that's just one individual I just ran across that used to be the other way. Now you could do this test. This is a real easy one. You ask anyone who voted for Trump and ask them if they were to vote again, would they vote for Hillary Clinton?
That's an interesting thing,
and it's all, I've never met one.
Yeah,
I doubt if you ever would. Now go ask a Hillary Clinton voter if they would voting today, would they vote for Trump? I see this all the time. I saw it just today.
Yeah,
someone who voted for Hillary, but next time, have they?
Oh, I believe that
able
totally.
To re-vote again?
Yeah.
They would not vote for her. They would vote for Trump.
Do you remember one of our shows probably a year ago, I think, when I talked to you about the Hispanic lady who was a divorced mother of three, and I had asked her about the pursuit of happiness? I would love to be able to talk to her.
Wouldn't that be nice?
Yeah, I'd like to be able to talk to her and see where, because she was a very intelligent woman. And she just told me, she says, the way things are, she said, and I asked her about, she says, I don't have time to even think about the pursuit of happiness or the American dream. I've got 3 kids I've got to feed.
Sure.
And so it'd be interesting to see how her life has changed, because I guarantee it has.
Well, it's like I told my sister this morning, texted her, and I said, aren't you, it was early in the morning, I knew she was just getting up, aren't you happy that you're waking up this morning and that you're not a libtard? No, I said I wasn't going to use that, but I did with her. And I said, can you imagine how miserable that must be for somebody like that to wake up with? They're angry. They're miserable. There's no joy in their life.
They see no future.
They see no future.
Yeah.
And they're of the mindset that they would, in fact, and they would gleefully accept the fact that they are now being controlled. And it's like this friend of mine that I mentioned that who did not support Trump way back. Now it is, this guy. He said the whole thing I began to realize is that all that the Democrats I said, it's not just Democrats. I said, it's Republicans also, then that elite uniparty.
Yeah.
He says, all they want is to control me. Trump's putting the money in, I've seen my check. He's putting the money in, I can now control me.
See.
It's a difference. Do you let them control you, or do I get to control
There's a totally
myself?
different America right now. A different era about all of us, and I can see it and feel
it.
Yeah, and you don't even have to say anything. You can sit in the coffee shop having breakfast and just listen to the conversation. I've done that, and it's
pretty interesting. Huh?
You doggone right it is. Gary, we're going to take a little break,
yeah,
and we'll be back, ladies and gentlemen. Say 2 and 2. Right back. Okay, I'm back. We got a lot of things we're going to cover today. We're going to talk about the tariffs. We're going to talk about Sessions, and just quite a few things, and probably again about Kim Jong-un. I love to say his name. Gary, what do you think?
I call him Rocket Man. I thought that word.
earlier, about a year ago, I was calling him little fat man with the black coat and the bad haircut.
I remember. But a little bit of a background, I call it, or maybe something that isn't always apparent, and that is that Kim Jong-un is controlled by China, and North Korea is controlled by China, and has been
I can believe that.
I don't know, 50 years or something like that, okay? So China could end or begin with North Korea anytime they want.
I believe that totally.
Okay,
I do.
Now it's not separate that there's a Korean deal or a tariff deal and another deal. No, those all are
yes.
Okay, and what China has done is, or what Trump has done, is said to China, you need to help solve that Korean deal. And if you're not going to do it, then we're going to do it.
He said that earlier, I remember.
Right. So he formed these sanctions against North Korea. And see what the North Koreans been doing with China's blessing is blackmailing, going clear back to Clinton, Obama, and George Bush, blackmailing our presidents, if you will, or our country, with that nuclear deal. And it's worked marvelous for them as well as China.
Absolutely.
And China basically, at any time they stir a little bit up, in the past what they do is just pay some money and let China come in the back door with something they really want, and then America would pay the money, pay the ransom, pay the ransom, pay the ransom. Okay, that's what's been going on.
And they just ran right over. So all the way back to Carter, even. Yeah.
All the way back to Carter. And so, what Trump did is he said, "No, we can't do that anymore. We're gonna end all that." So the little nuke guy keeps nuking, and so forth. Well, Trump, he gives them a look at what the American military looks like sitting out there ready to annihilate. So anything that he would do is a self-destruction, and it doesn't take long to figure that one out.
Oh no.
Oh, and the willingness to do that, and Trump demonstrated the willingness with some of the things he did with those bombs that he did, right? He said, hey, when I say that, I'll do it, and he does it. He doesn't back off, right? So the guy understands that. He's sitting there. Okay, at the same time, here's China, sort of like they're wanting to sanction and do all, and they kind of go along that, but the fear of China, biggest fear of China, is economic destruction by the United States.
Oh, their whole economy is based on us when you think about it.
So what it is, how does Chinese leaders save face? How does China save face? They save face by making the North Korean rocket man a scapegoat. And he's going to take the blame.
That's beautiful, Gary, and it makes sense.
Okay, does that make sense? All right. So with these sanctions, it's not just the sanctions. What Trump is telling China, this is what's going to happen to your economy if you don't solve this. And we're going to give you an opportunity to save face by doing so. And that's what you're seeing right now. You're seeing China dictating, if you will, to Rocket Man, till you meet with Trump, but Trump and the Chinese, they've already got this figured out. So how do we do this to where China saves face, at the same time, you make North Korea the scapegoat, make him the fall guy, which he will be, but in a way that's going to be a benefit to him, because otherwise he'd be annihilated. This way he gets to be a hero to his people and so forth. With the South Korea, make it all whatever that turns out to be. But that's the I don't know, I call it the 5D chess game that Trump's always playing, and people who are like the media, they're incapable. Think about a journalist. What's the easiest course to go to college with and get a major in? Journalism. You haven't got rocket scientists taking those courses, as evidenced by what you see on TV.
Well, sure.
Just listen to a press conference. See how stupid these people are.
Yeah.
They're not very bright. But the bright people the bright people are in there doing the real jobs that require brightness, like a doctor or a physicist or a scientist, that kind of thing. It's not some journalist.
Yeah.
He's just about as much an idiot I've ever seen, as they keep demonstrating over and over.
Oh yeah, they do demonstrate that. All right.
So now what happens is, in summary, is that now for the first time since I can remember, since back before 1950, the American president has never met with a North Korean leader.
Isn't that amazing?
All
of a sudden, Trump gets elected. It's happening.
Think about what happens to the economic pressure that's being placed on China by Trump, that's forcing China's hand to deal with North Korea, and to where North Korea is no longer the blackmail deal they were using all these years. and they become somewhat of a liability. Because if we don't take care of Korea, I guarantee you our economy is not going to be doing very well with the U.S.
Oh, I agree.
And we're talking, I mean, it's kind of common sense when you start to look at it. So when you see what this North Korean is doing and all that, of course the press would have him, he's a hero. You know?
Yeah.
But anyway, see what's happening in North Korea. It's all being directed by China. And China is being told in a way of which China can save face by doing so. China's not going to be the one that's defeated. The defeat's going to be laid right on North Korea. It's going to be laid right on Rocket Man.
Oh, absolutely.
So that's the game, how it's being played, and it ties in with the Middle East and everything else as far as economically.
Mm-hmm.
You see, so if you look, that's a backstory, if you will. You know?
Yeah.
But it's interesting how that works, because if you ever read that Art of the Deal, it'll explain that, and in the sense
I've got to read that. I've heard so many good things about it.
How Trump negotiates is an example. So he's handling that negotiation with China, but it's intertwined with so many other facets that's going, including the Middle East, and everything is factored into that. Mm-hmm. And so when he applies the pressure, he has it on his side, and China now is saying, we got to change this, and one way we got to get rid of this North Korea issue, because it's now become a problem, and we can't use it like we used to. Mm-hmm. We can't use it as blackmail with weak leaders that the U.S. have, like
because they don't have. There is no weak
for the
leader.
last because we do not have a weak leader.
Yeah.
So we're going to have to deal with it straight on, and we better come out of this thing where we don't get hurt. And one way to not get hurt is to neutralize North Korea, make them the bad guy,
which they can do in a second,
and they can do in a second, and then they turn around and their economy.
That's beautiful.
Again.
That's what's going to happen. That's
right.
Beautiful, Gary.
So that's a plan. Like, if you think about that, okay. Now let's.
I think you can sit back, ladies and gentlemen, and watch this happen.
Well,
yeah.
And the other thing this leads us on to the next deal, which is tariff. Mm-hmm. Now look how I'm not just saying just Trump, but Ross and these people. Look, and Rex Tillerson.
Yeah.
Look how skillful they are with that. Okay, now think about this. We're going to have a tariff. Now, wouldn't you think that most people would say, okay, we got this approval to put tariffs on people, so we put a tariff on that company, on that country. Mm-hmm. We punish them with a tariff, right? That's a punishment. So we see another country over here that's,
put a tariff on them.
Punish them. Mm-hmm. All we're doing is sending a signal, and people are being punished. So why don't we do this, Ray? Why don't we put a tariff on everybody? And then the ones who treat us fairly, we reward them by removing the tariff. That's reciprocity. So now instead of countries being punished, nobody's being punished. In the sense that if you start operating your operation in your country in fairness, you get the rewarded by that tariff being removed.
I love it.
So Trump has skillfully changed the perception of punishing. Nobody likes to be punished. I don't care who you are. He changed that to being rewarded. Mm-hmm. Wouldn't that strike you pretty well the same
absolutely.
way?
Yeah. Absolutely.
I mean, come on, Ray. I mean, just write down the thing. We know we're both going to get punished that night. Well, if that's because that's punishment. But if we're both going to get punished tonight, however, if one of us straightens up, we're not going to get punished. We'll get rewarded. So people react much more favorably to a reward than they would react to a punishment.
Yeah.
So what Trump has done is made it all, and then now he's rewarding.
Yeah.
Well, let's say this country, Croatia, just got they got their tariff removed. Well, they got rewarded. And now how about the ones that didn't? Well, they continue to.
Yeah.
They're all being treated equal in that part of it. So that kind of handles, I think, explains a little bit about some of the tariff idea, and along with all the other stuff that benefits. There's just a guy I was looking at just for the show he's a union guy for the steel industry, I mean, it was just amazing what he had to say about it and how unfair it had been. I had no idea it was that unfair.
Oh, wow.
You know, people are waking up to that.
Yeah.
Okay, which takes us into the next type of deal. Okay, we talked about what's going on with North Korea. We talked about what's going on with the tariff, part of it. And the third part is the Sessions.
That's the part I want to talk about.
Okay, now let's think about this. All this time, Sessions hasn't done anything. Well, that upsets everybody, including me. I mean, we all are upset, right? How come these criminals are not having to answer to anything? Sessions is doing nothing. Trump is even bad-mouthing Sessions.
Mm-hmm.
And he's making it vocal, right? So everybody's against Sessions. Sessions recused himself right at the get-go.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if you're not going to be able to do your job, why are you taking the job? That's the first note of business you did the first hour is recuse.
Exactly, I remember.
Okay, now let's think about that. He has all of us upset over that he recused himself from the Russian investigations. And we're all upset. On top of that, he hasn't done a thing that we know of.
Yeah.
Actually, when you analyze it, he's done a tremendous, and I have a list. But,
Okay.
But anyway,
I know you would.
But I mean,
cool.
the point is, we don't know. It's not being reported, and then he's doing nothing. He's either the slyest fox that ever. I used to call him Possum. Now I call him Sly Fox. But think about him and Trump. Had he not recused himself, he would have been involved in the investigation the ongoing Russia investigation.
Exactly.
If he had been involved with that, who else is involved? The media.
Yeah.
Who else is involved? All the politicians. And because of his investigation, he would have to divulge information that if he's not on there, there's nothing for him to talk about, right? So he doesn't have to divulge all that. He doesn't have to divulge that to anybody because he's not on it. He's recused himself from
Beautiful.
it. You see what he's done there? Okay, so now Trump even adds to it, and he starts bad-mouthing Sessions periodically all year, right? The press, my God, they feel sorry for Sessions because they don't like Trump at all.
Yeah.
So they're going
to jump on this. Yeah.
So they jump on Trump and make Sessions the good guy.
Mm-hmm.
But what happens in the meantime? Without telling a soul, without fearing leak, without fearing a obligation had he been in the investigation, the recusal that he did allows him to not have to say one thing about it at all because he's not involved in it. So what does he do? He goes and hires a special prosecutor or a prosecutor, not from Washington, D.C. He hires somebody completely away from Washington, D.C. This person, though nobody knows who it is yet to this day, there's no leaks. Think of the leaks that he would have had he been involved in.
Oh, my goodness.
This one has 0 leaks. Nobody even knows who that is. And how long has it been going on? Ever since last summer.
Whoa.
Think about that. Ever since last summer. So let's talk about the art of negotiation.
Okay.
And the art of wars, very similar. And deception is a big part of it. And sometimes you have to deceive your own ally. So Sessions, in essence, had to deceive some of his own, the allies.
Yeah.
And let's just say it was Trump. Let's say Trump didn't know anything about this. I have a feeling that him and Sessions are the only two that know about it. But anyway, that's up for a discussion that somebody may want, but it doesn't matter either way. The point is, but we've had all this time since last summer, and Sessions has been completely neutered to the point everybody was making Sessions out to be the biggest pussycat that ever walked on planet Earth. Just the opposite. He has, I don't know what, it's thousands of indictments for a lot of different things, But think about what he's been doing. without worrying about leaks, because nothing's been leaked, even to the point that they'll even know who it is.
Yeah.
But he's been investigating ever since then. He or she.
Yeah.
We don't know. And so what happens is, all of a sudden, all this Russia deal, which Trump knew all along there was nothing to that, that becomes a media nightmare in the sense that they have nothing.
Yeah.
So they look pretty foolish, And people are focused on it, and they keep Sessions doing nothing, where all of a sudden you wake up, if you happen to be one of the culprits, wouldn't you be nervous thinking, oh my God, this guy's been at this all year?
Of course.
And my God, who's he got?
Mm-hmm.
I haven't heard a word about it. Holy, man, where do I stand now?
Yeah.
And there's 5 people that, pretty sure these 5 people are cooperating, that are singing like canaries, if you will, and to lighten what will be their sentence.
This is gonna all hit the fan.
Yeah, it's going to hit the fan, and what we're waiting for right now is this Horowitz investigation.
Yeah.
Okay, now let's look at the investigation. Congress can't prosecute, but they can investigate. Mm-hmm. And so we've had Nunes, we had Grassley, now we have Horowitz. Mm-hmm. These investigations are coming out with what they've discovered, of which really, quite frankly, there's nothing can be done about it because they don't have that authority.
Yeah.
Legal authority to do so. However, how about this Sessions with this guy he's got that's not even a part of the swamp? He's not one of the politicians. He's not part of Congress. He's not part of the Senate. He's not part of the deep state bureaucracy.
Yeah.
Let me tell you, they're all corrupt.
Oh, I believe that totally.
So you're not going to have any cooperation necessary if you pick somebody in-house to go do the investigating. I mean, that's like telling the highway patrol to give a guy a ticket who happens to be a cop.
Yeah.
You see.
Perfect example. Gary, we're going to take a little break here.
Yeah.
And ladies and gentlemen, we'll be back in, say, 2 and 2. Okay, I'm back, and I'm back with Gary, and we're discussing everything, the tariffs, Kim Jong-un, everything. And by the way, if there's anyone out there that feels the calls in, you want to talk to Gary or talk to me, please feel free. I should say that every week. Feel free to call in and talk to us. We can Skype you. We can do whatever. But if you feel like you'd like to call in and talk, and if you've got an opinion about something, even if you don't, if you just want to call in and talk, feel free to do that. Gary?
Yeah, I think the main thing that we wanted to talk about today was there's a backstory to every story. Mm-hmm. And you will not be able to depend on the press to get the backstory.
Oh, I believe that.
Now, there are some that do talk about it, but I don't know, it's kind of like, boy, unless you catch that channel at that moment, nobody ever talks about it.
Yeah.
But there are a couple of really good, excellent, we'll call them press people or journalists.
Yeah.
And but my gosh, they are buried so deep that you're never going to see them on CNN. You're never going to see them on MSM and any of those, like NBC, CBS. You're never going to see any of them there.
Yeah, you might see them on Fox.
But you might see you might see them on Fox.
Yeah.
And you will see them in the social media.
Yeah.
And that's what more and more people are realizing, is that they're going to the social media. Mm-hmm. And I was amazed.
That's all a part of this waking up process.
Well, we're all waking up, And it was amazing to me the other day, forever, since there's been internet or something, Twitter, I guess, the number one has been the Pope worldwide as far as followers. Well, Trump is ahead of the Pope by about 10 million now.
What does that tell you?
There's nobody that's followed more than Trump.
Yeah.
All over the world.
Yeah.
And it's growing at a rate of 15,000 a day.
Oh my goodness, that's amazing! I didn't know that, Gary.
I didn't either, but found out.
That is a great figure. 15,000 a day.
15,000 a day are all over the world are discovering. They go to Trump's Twitter.
We're talking about a 10-day period, 150,000. That's amazing. Every 10 days.
Yeah, worldwide. I mean, because what happens? You take like the Mid East. Those people down there. Where are they getting? They're seeing how Trump is actually instrumental in how their lives are anymore.
I don't know if you recall a couple of months ago, because I've been out of the gym for 2 months. I get to go back, by the way. I got
good for you.
I am so excited. Next week I go back.
Great.
And I am so excited. And I've got so many great friends there. But I was in the sauna, and it's one of my favorite places, the way I end my workout every day. And I sit in the sauna for 15, 20 minutes, just wonderful. And I was in there with a young Persian man in his 30s. He was a banker. And he saw my Trump shirt on. That always starts conversations wherever I go. And we started talking, and he said, "Thank goodness for Donald Trump."
Yeah.
You know, he says that's all I'm saying. He said there are people in my country that just can't wait to get here because there's no opportunity there. You know, so you're right, and it's growing everywhere. And of course,
well, there's just so many opportunities that you don't even like the one we talked about before, which we call that white apple that you and I are and we have somebody else is coming in with.
Yeah, that's exciting.
But we're working on something that allows the people to legally keep their money, and then
this is going to be great. Say that again. This is called White Apple. It's Gary's invention. It's absolutely outstanding. I am so happy to be a part of it, and I'm going to be like his vice president. I love it. But it is a great thing. We'll be able to explain. But go.
It's not something I haven't done before. I did it back in the 70s, but then they changed the rules back then. So it's not like I'm completely having to change anything that I haven't done already. You see, so now does it work? Yes. Do I know it works? Yes. Does the IRS approve it? Absolutely. I have made sure.
It's going to be great for everybody. Can you, now that we got on this, I wasn't going to ask you, but I'm going to ask you now. Kind of put you on the spot. Can you explain where this white apple originated from, the little girl?
Oh, the little girl.
This is a great story. Listen to this. Now, this is the name of this new company that we're forming. But this is how it came into fruition, so to speak. Gary?
Well, there was this second grade school teacher that decided to ask her class, second graders, what are the color of apples? And little Johnny got up and said, well, apples are red. And Susie said they're green. And somebody said they're yellow. And somebody said they're kind of brown. And some are orange and all the rest. Well, this one little girl got up, and she says apples are white. And the teacher was taken aback by it. And she says, well, where in the world have you ever seen a white apple in an apple tree? Where have you seen white apples in the store? Where have you seen white apples anywhere? She says, teacher, you cut them in half and they're all white.
Don't you love it?
She was thinking out of the box.
That's our new company.
And
White Apple.
That's what we're talking about, is thinking out of the box. And basically, what it is being able to take the tax dollars that you have today that would be going to the IRS, take those dollars and defer them at a later date. So now that you have them, you have those dollars at a time when you
need them.
You need them.
Yeah.
You see, what you need to do is you need to have the money now to live on. You know, but my Lord, doesn't it just kind of gall you to think that I'm writing this check? I don't care if it's $1 or it's $1 million. I'm writing the check and I'll never see it again. And I'm the one that earned it.
Yeah,
I'm the one that made it.
It's your money.
It's your money.
Not like
first.
It's somebody else's money.
And then
this is why this is so brilliant.
Now, wouldn't it be nice to take that, whatever it is? Yeah, you don't get to use it today, but guess what you do? You get to put it away to where it's still on your side of the ledger, so that you could use it at a time when you're not having to.
It's brilliant.
Able
and
to
it's
work
beautiful.
anymore. So it's no more than taking the money you sweated for and earned today, and having it available for you to enjoy it later on. And if not you, then pass it on to your heirs or whatever. But the point is, the difference is do I write that check that I'll never see again, or do I write that check that I will see again?
That I can use when I need it.
Yeah.
It's
and
just
when
brilliant.
I'm no longer able to earn the kind of income that I am right now at age 40 years old or something like that, and I'm no longer able to do that because I'm old and retired.
Yeah.
So now, wouldn't it be nice to have all those dollars that all those years
that you've sent to the government that you're never going to see?
Right. And so then now what happens is, are you cheating the government? Listen, what you're doing is the way it has to be done. It has to be done in something that has a utility, like we're using equipment. Mm-hmm. You're putting people to work that wouldn't be at work if you weren't doing that particular.
Absolutely. Talk about the American way.
Yeah. So that money that's being deferred is not just sitting there under a rock somewhere. No, it's out there employing people, creating jobs, creating utility.
Yeah.
And so that these people are benefiting by what? By you contributing that to what you're going to see back someday.
And in our own way, we are contributing to the economy of this country.
And that's what I mean. You are.
Yeah.
But also, you're directing where that money goes.
Yeah.
Not going into some program that maybe you'd be. Let's say you're dead set against abortion, but the tax dollar that you're paying, perhaps part of that is going to something that you are totally opposed to.
Yeah.
Wouldn't it be better to, you don't get the money. Yeah, it's got to be spent. But wouldn't it be nice that you get to spend where it goes?
It's your money. But it comes back down to this. It's your money in the first place. It's your money.
It gets down to going and control. It's control.
Yeah.
Instead of having somebody controlling those dollars that you worked hard for, and I don't care what job you had, but you worked hard. It's taking those same dollars and then you having the opportunity to determine where those dollars go and make that decision, as opposed to some bureaucrat that's sitting in some deep state, which we're now seeing is how corrupt and crooked they all are.
I'll talk to Gary, and we'll find a time. Maybe we'll in the future here, near future, I hope, we can sit and dedicate almost a whole show to this and explain to a lot of people. You want to do that, Gary? You think we can do that?
Yeah.
And whenever Gary says he's ready, then we'll do that, and you'll find out a lot more about it, and it's going to benefit everyone.
Well, it goes exactly what Trump wants.
This part I love.
And he wants the return of the wealth with the American people. Americans first. He uses Americans first.
Yeah.
Man, if this isn't Americans first, what is? Because it's Americans who are out there working, they're first to determine where their money goes.
I love this.
And they then do what? The ones that get the benefit of having that money someday down the road.
Yeah.
And so what does that mean? That means that every American's wealthy. Mm-hmm. Has an opportunity.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's say you say, well, okay, I'm going to go to work for McDonald's. I kind of move up the road, and I'm maybe managing a store, a McDonald's down the road, and I may even get a franchise. I don't know, whatever it is I'm doing. Mm-hmm. But every year you're paying so much money in taxes, right? Some of that goes to taxes. Wouldn't it be nice that all that money that would normally go to taxes, you get to determine where it goes, and now you get to have that money after you retire from.
How beautiful is that? You think that might add to a few IRAs or,
Oh, well, absolutely. Yeah. And so what is that? If that isn't returning America first, then what is?
This
and
is
that's what Trump's
brilliant
all
and beautiful.
About. Yeah, and Trump's all about Americans first.
We're going to dedicate a show to this, or at least a half a show, whatever Gary has it on, so that people understand it more. We're just not quite ready to do that yet, but we will be.
Well, and you're American first. If that's what is meant, what's more America first? Americans first. What is more American first than they determining where their money goes?
Yeah.
I mean, I get to determine first. Now, let's say I elect not to do it. Let's say I'm sitting there. You're telling me about it. I don't think so, Ray. Well, I make the decision.
Yeah.
My
At least
decision
it's your
is
decision.
Yeah. My decision is I'm going to go ahead and pay the IRS.
Yeah.
That's fine. Now, you may think it's not a very wise decision, but then that person says, "Nope, I'm fine. I'm just going to go ahead and pay the IRS." Now, at the end of the term, the two guys working together at a lathe, some machine shop, when they retire, I'll guarantee you that old boy that's been putting that tax dollar away, which has compounded, who knows how many times, he's going to walk out of there and he says, "What are you doing?" "Well, I'm going down to the Social Security office tomorrow because, man, I've turned 2 years old, and I'm going to go by God and I got to get that." "What are you going to do?" He said, "Man, I'm going fishing. I got so much money to put away."
And on the way, I'm going to stop buying new bath boats. I love it. Well, as usual, ladies and gentlemen, it's 3:57. Gary comes. I say it every week. We run out of time. We want to dedicate a show to what we just talked about because this is something, like he said, it's total American, it's total Donald Trump, and it's something that it can help everybody. Taking control of your money. And that's very, very vital, and it puts you in the driver's seat as opposed to the IRS.
Well,
so,
And the thing is, we need to have a show like that because there's more to it.
Yeah.
Why isn't this being taught in schools? It gets into that.
Good, Gary. You've told me. I want you to tell the people.
I'm going to put it this
chance.
way. So, well, that's just too complicated. Finance is too Let me tell you how complicated it is. I'll tell you the courses you are going to take in school that are much more difficult. Algebra, chemistry, physics, geometry. I guarantee you every one of those courses would be 10 times more difficult than understanding the simple facts of
We're going to dedicate a show to
how
this.
you can manage your own money.
I'm going to talk to Gary. When Gary's ready, I will announce the week prior to that the next week we're going to talk about that so we get a big audience. We get people calling in about this. Well, like I do every week, and by the way, yesterday I went up and talked to a sheriff's deputy and told him how much we appreciate him. And this thing is starting to blossom. Gary does it. Everyone I know, all my friends are doing it. And just walk up to a policeman when you see one. Try to do it every day and let them know how much we appreciate what they do, because they have a thankless job. And usually they get talked badly too. No one comes up and shakes their hand and says thank you for what you do, because they're doing a lot of things that most of us would not want to do it. I don't want to do it. I don't want to get shot at. I don't want to carry a gun. But they do it, and they do it to protect and serve us. And I honor them. I think it's great. So in closing, let me say what I always say. Until we meet joyously again next Friday at 3 o'clock, heaven's blessings.
And who died, who gave that right to me, and I gladly stand up next to you and defend her still today, 'cause there ain't no doubt I love this land. God bless the USA.
CentralValleyTalk.com